Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Live Free Now show. I'm your host, John Bush, where every week on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central, we bring you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. Really excited to be doing the show this week. We got a lot of ground to cover, specifically where it comes to central bank digital currencies and the sneak attack, as I'm calling it, that is currently underway through the Trump administration. So we're going to break down the Genius Act. The Genius Act. We're going to talk about this bill to ban the Federal Reserve from issuing stable coins, or CBDCs, I should say. And of course, as usual, we're going to focus heavily on solutions. That's what we're all about. It's one thing to know the problem. That doesn't really get you very far. It just, I don't know, a lot of folks, it gives them an air of superiority to know what the problem is when it comes to the predator class and the New World Order. But where the magic is knowing solutions to overcome those problems, and really the essence of what it is that we're trying to do here, and what I try to put forward in my work, is to help people remember who they really are, to help people remember that we hold so much power and that we have this creative light within us that for many, it's laid dormant. It's lied dormant for so many years. That's all part of a program in all reality. And so I want to encourage people to break free of that program, to step out of a reactionary paradigm, to stop living in fear, and to step into faith, whatever that may mean to you. Faith in God, faith in humanity, faith in your ability to overcome adversity and to grow through it, whatever that means. Overcoming fear, moving into faith is a necessary component for us to establish a beautiful, free world, the type of world that we all desire. The type of world that our posterity deserves. So let us go ahead and get right down into it. If you've been paying attention to the news at all, or the crypto sphere, or Twitter, or anything, you know that the Genius Act passed the Senate not too long ago, and it's been debated in the House the past couple days. Let's go ahead and take a look just at a quick shot of searching for Genius Act on our favorite Google platform and see what comes up. So, of course, this is happening now. Yesterday, this was up for a vote, the Genius Act, which aims to regulate stable coins. Okay. What is a stable coin? Let's break that down. Let's take it step by step, piece by piece. I'll lay out the problem. More importantly, I'll invite you into the solution to join the counter economy, join other free, empowered people that are taking responsibility for opting out of this nonsense and creating a better world. So what are stable coins? Stable coins are cryptocurrencies that are pegged to the value of a given asset, currency, or commodity. Most commonly, stable coins are pegged to the value of the United States dollar. Okay, so two of the most popular stable coins are Tether and US dollar Circle. Tether is also known as USDC. Okay, now these stable coins serve a great purpose. They help folks to take profit out of a cryptocurrency, park it in a stable coin that's not volatile, except it just goes down in value slowly but surely. They enable transactions to take place with little to no fee from country to country. These all have benefits and use cases. There's stable coins that are used on decentralized finance platforms, for example. Okay. And so stable coins have a purpose, but there is a challenge with these stable coins. And that challenge is that many of these stable coins are centralized. Okay. Many of the stable coins are surveillable, almost all of them, meaning you can see what type of transactions are taking place that people use. Okay. And on top of that, many of the stable coins are censorable. Your transaction can be stopped. All right. Transaction can be stopped. And they're also programmable, which is a big concern of many people, right? Again, so stable coins are centralized, trackable, censorable, and programmable. Well, guess what, my friends? That just so happens to be the very same characteristics and concerns of central bank digital currencies. CBDCs are coming, CBDCs are going to happen, and we better prepare and opt out and all this stuff. But I got news for you, my friends. CBDCs in large part, I got a blister from working in the garden earlier, and the Band-Aid just fell off. CBDCs in large part are already here in many ways, and stable coins in the United States are going to be the death nail on the coffin. All right, so that's what stable coins are. So where does that bring us? Well, right now, there's a bill being introduced. There's a bill that's passed the Senate, and that bill is called the Genius Act. It's now being considered in the House. Yesterday, there was a big shakeup because the bill got slowed down and through some procedural rules. But then Trump is very passionate about passing this bill. He had a meeting with some of the representatives, and apparently the votes are now secured. All right, so House GOP revolt slams brakes. I believe this was from yesterday. All right, Capitol agenda. Trump puts out another fire for Johnson. Trump says he has deal on crypto legislation after GOP hardliners derailed measure earlier. All right, so let's talk about what this bill actually does. Because one thing that I've shared, I don't know if I could share it anymore, but I've pointed out, along with other folks like my good friend Derek Bros, that Donald Trump is not your friend. He's being leveraged by the predator class, it remains to be seen how conscious of it all he is, but he's most definitely being used for the Great Reset agenda to be rapidly accelerated. And the big concern between Kamala Harris, Joe Biden types pushing forward the Great Reset agenda, that's centralization of power, surveillance, panopticon society, artificial intelligence, governance, right? It's technocracy, essentially. Rule by algorithm, scientific dictatorship. Basically the goal of the New World Order all along. But now the technology exists to actually pull it off. Contrast Kamala, DNC factions, who were also accelerating this agenda, just with a different veneer and different talking points. Contrast that with Donald Trump and his crew. Career politicians, folks that are largely like ignoramuses and like bumbling idiots with a bunch of bureaucrats and folks that are somewhat deranged. Not that these guys over here are not deranged as well. But this party and this group of people that Trump has surrounded himself with, Trump especially, they're effective at getting stuff done, not via legislation and bureaucracy and congressional hearings, but rather via business savvy deal making and effective capital allocation. So the concern now, because everyone in the freedom movement, not everyone, but a lot of people, well, at least it's not Kamala. At least it's not Kamala. La, la, la. Wah, wah, wah. I like to give up my power. I just love giving my power away and voting for people that will solve our problems and upset this tyranny we've been living under, because I never learned to take control of my life, let alone make a difference in the world, in my community. I don't mean to poke fun, but I mean, come on, guys. How many elections have to go by with you being lied and duped to? How many promises have to be broken by crooked politicians before? How many times do you have to vote for the lesser of two evils? Because I've been paying attention to politics since 2002. And it's the same game every 4 years. And it's the same thing with Boris Johnson and British prime ministers and Canadian prime ministers. It's a clown show. And the more you buy into it, the more you demonstrate to the world and subconsciously to yourself that you don't have faith in your ability to bring about change in your life and in the lives of others. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what it illustrates to me. And so, la, 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 at least it's not Kamala. Well, I got news for you, folks. Now, if it was Kamala, a lot of people would still be up in arms and anti-government. A lot of patriots, freedom lovers, constitutionalists, Christian conservatives, libertarians even. They'd be like, oh, we got to rail against the government. Let's find solutions. Let's work through the state government to push back on the federal government. But instead, it's Trump. And now a lot of freedom people or folks that were pushing back against the predator class in one way or another, now they're pacified because they tied their ego in with Trump. And that is the great challenge with supporting candidates. Vote for so-and-so. Let me post on Facebook. Let me campaign for this person. Let me post on X. Let me tie my identity and my self-worth to another human being so that when this human being, and the result of that is when this human being doesn't show up in a manner that's in alignment with my values or what I expected of him, because so many people let their ego control their actions and their behavior because their ego is a fragile little injured child that they never did the inner child work to heal or to determine that they have their own unique self-worth. So they care so much about what other people think about them. If you want to get deep with what's really going on here. So when this person, the politician, Trump, Biden, Kamala, Obama, whatever, I thought Obama was anti-war. They said, and I did the same thing. I voted for the Democrats and John Kerry and Nancy Pelosi before she took control of the House back in the day. This was 2004 because I was an anti-war activist. The Democrats, they promised to defund the war in Iraq. I'm going to vote for them. But even though I'm still doing ego work, but I definitely hadn't done enough ego work back then. But because I was such a critical thinker, I was like, wait a second, they just pulled a fast one on me. This whole left-right thing, it's all Fugazi nonsense. It's a fake. It's a phony. But again, the folks that don't have a strong enough ego to allow themselves to admit that they may have been wrong and to pursue alternative solutions, they double down on their commitment and it becomes a cult of personality. That's why you see a lot of MAGA people that know what's up, that know about New World Order conspiracies, justifying, and it takes more time and this, that, and the other. There's a good friend of mine that I've known since 2007, since the Ron Paul campaign, that was a big MAGA guy. I was pushing back on him, and he finally is starting to admit that we were duped, and oh my God. So kudos to him for being brave enough and honorable enough to admit that publicly. But then they pile on in the comments, it takes more than a year to make change in Washington. Just trust the process. Donald Trump's having to fight back against the deep state. It's total nonsense. So that's the challenge with supporting politicians. You don't push back. And so a bunch of people are now pacified. And again, Kamala versus Trump. Trump is rapidly accelerating the agenda, not just Trump, but those he surrounds himself with, like Peter Thiel and Palantir and Oracle and all sorts of artificial intelligence, big tech, Zionist military contractor nonsense. And the agenda's plowing forward. Okay, so there's my little side quest. Let's get back to today's news. So a lot of folks have been duped. It's the same phenomenon taking place. Here's another side quest. Trump's going to save us, and we got to cheer on now. Digital ID. I was opposed to digital ID, but now that I'm so worked up about illegal immigration, I have no problem with expanded biometric surveillance at the border and pushing digital IDs on American citizens so we can make sure illegal immigrants don't vote and we can make sure they don't get access to benefits and it's easier to deport them because they don't have ID. You see how that works? It's problem, reaction, solution, total psyop. And until you break free of it, you're going to get caught in the pendulum going left to right, left to right. The architects of the New World Order are extremely cunning when it comes to social engineering. And don't you believe for a moment that they are not, this whole thing isn't scripted and played out years, if not decades in advance. Started reading this great book by David Dida. I read it in the past. I'm revisiting it, called The Way of the Superior Man. It's all about masculine, feminine polarity. And if there's not a polarity, a tension between the masculine energy and the feminine energy, then there's no polarity. That can come from leadership in a relationship, sexuality, whatever it may be. And he laid out how the masculine and feminine balance has changed in phases over the past century, where it was very toxic with back in the 50s and early, the 20s, 30s, a toxic masculine bully male figure, and then this weak, dismissive feminine figure but the man would use control and financial control and such on the woman. And then the woman would use emotional withdrawal and sexual intimacy withdrawal. And then in the 60s, things started getting, and so that was a strong masculine, but like toxic, and then weak feminine. And then in the 60s, 70s and onward, it became like, well, let's both go into the workforce. And the men became a little more feminine, growing their hair out, the hippie movement, even the non-hippies had longer hair, and we're getting in touch with our emotions. And then the women were like, we're going to go through the feminist movement and move into the workforce and become more masculine, right? And it was like a 50-50. Let's share equally, right? And as I was reading that, I was thinking, well, what is that? A lot of that was by design by the architects of the New World Order, who leverage psychology, brain control to socially engineer the public into being exactly the slavish type society that is easier to control and leverage for your desires to bring about change. And then now what are they doing with the social engineering? Everybody's all confused about gender, and is there even gender? And there's like 839 genders. So it's all part of the same devolution of a sacred relationship between feminine and masculine, not just between two parties, but within each and every one of us as well. So there's another side quest. Now back to the news. This is what happens when there's no guest on the show, by the way. We're just freestyling here. I hope you enjoy it. All right, so here's the challenge with the Stable Act. Oh, what I was going to say is everybody's duped into the Trump thing. We believe Trump. We were against digital ID, but now we're for digital ID because it's against the immigration. Same thing. A lot of crypto bros and freedom people that are in the crypto movement are now like, we got to pass this bill, the Genius Act, because it's going to help regulate cryptocurrency. And I'm holding a big bag of Bitcoin and other stuff. And as cryptocurrency gains greater regulatory clarity, then that means I'm going to be able to make more money with my stash. And now I don't really mind that these bills are passing. In fact, I'm all in favor of it. And it reminds me of Senator Amidala. I don't know if it was, I think it was in Star Wars Episode 2, where she's like, where they vote, the Senate votes to give Palpatine emergency powers, and everybody's clapping in the big Senate, the Imperial Senate. It's not the Imperial Senate yet. And she says, so this is how liberty dies, to the sound of thunderous applause. So telling. It's exactly what's happening now, my friends. So what this legislation actually does, let's take a look at it. Don't take my word for it. Let's head over to the text of Senate Bill 158. All right. Senate Bill 158, the Genius Act. Okay, my friends. What is this bill all about? Well, it's the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for United States Stablecoins Act, cleverly named the Genius Act. Okay. Now, of course, we go through these definitions first. Some key things to note here are the Bank Secrecy Act, okay? And I'll share what this does with the Bank Secrecy Act. The Bank Secrecy Act, I'll tell you what that is. The board means the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, okay? Those are the most important things that I want to bring to your attention right now. So let's talk about before we get into what the bill does, what is the Bank Secrecy Act? The Bank Secrecy Act is a older piece of legislation. When was that legislation passed? Decades ago. I'm very familiar with it, being a crypto guy for over a decade now, because at one point I was considering starting a Bitcoin ATM company. Okay. Freeman says, all they say is inverted. So it must be the opposite of genius. That's right. Like the Department of Defense, it's doublethink. That is right. So the Bank Secrecy Act, thanks to our AI overview, is also known as the Currency and Foreign Transactions Reporting Act, a U.S. law enacted in 1970 to combat money laundering and other financial crimes. Now, I know about the Bank Secrecy Act because at one point I was planning on starting a Bitcoin ATM company and selling Bitcoin to people. So I went and started researching, well, what does that mean regulatory-wise? Because I know it was a big deal. Back, when I was doing this, 2014 or so, 2015, and then beyond, I continued to think about it. But I knew that there was less regulatory certainty back then, more now, but nonetheless, the rules still applied. If you're selling or moving or transferring or transmitting money between two parties for a profit as a business, then you're considered a money service business. And a money service business is required to comply with the Bank Secrecy Act, which is where we get KYC AML regulations. What is KYC AML? Know your customer anti-money laundering. What does that mean? If you've ever purchased cryptocurrency from an above board exchange, as I like to call them, you definitely had to scan a government ID. What they do is they take your identity, they cross-reference it with the database of known criminal organizations, known terrorists, and folks that are on the naughty list with the OFAC. What does OFAC stand for? OFAC, the Office of Foreign Assets Control, among other things. These are individuals, organizations that have been sanctioned. They're not supposed to do financial transactions in regulated countries and systems and cross borders. And so they cross-reference to make sure that you're not on the naughty list. That's what they say the whole purpose of that is. But as we've seen in the history of cryptocurrency and other uses, other money systems, we have seen that that information often gets turned over to the Internal Revenue Service, the I, the R, and the S. And then folks get forced to pay into their tax system and nonsense. Okay. And it's not just cryptocurrency companies that are money service businesses. You ever go open a bank account and you give them your ID and then they ask you some questions. They're actually going through a scripted process to make sure you are who you say you are and you're not doing any funny business. Please understand, my friends, the way things are going with this financial system, in fact, the way things already are in the present moment, is an environment where in order to use the legacy financial system, which I call the financial control grid, you have to ask permission. You don't have a right to use the banking system. In fact, it goes even further. When you put your money into a bank, you no longer have ownership and control over that money. It's all a great fugazi. And this is only accelerating and becoming more and more extreme as far as how much control, surveillance, programmability they have and how easy it is for them to turn off your ability to do business. So we're going to share exactly what this bill does in relation to the Bank Secrecy Act. You could probably already guess. So there's two key things I want to point out about this bill that are absolutely alarming. Well, three key things. And let's go ahead and show you what those are. So let's come back over here. The first one, here's the three key things, right? The first one has to do with the Bank Secrecy Act, which I just told you guys what it is. So let's go ahead and find where the Bank Secrecy Act is mentioned. Here we go. So here we see the primary federal payment stablecoin regulator. Let's go look at what that means real quick. So who is the primary federal payment stablecoin regulator? Well, let's go back to the definitions. This is what, hope you guys don't mind all the side quests. This is stream of consciousness here. One of the reasons why the exit and build thing is so powerful, because if you actually want to become a political activist and fight against bills and go lobby against bills and come in from someone that's actually helped a state representative to draft a bill. In fact, it was my language. I wrote the bill and gave it to a state representative, and they introduced it almost exactly as is. This was a bill to regulate Department of Homeland Security fusion centers, this big brother information gathering and intelligence sharing apparatus that seeks to merge local, state, and federal law enforcement organizations. There's like 7 of them in the state of Texas at the time. And the Texas Motorcycle Rights Association reached out to me because I was doing activism against fusion centers in Austin and around the country. And their folks in their biker clubs were getting pulled over by the Department of Public Safety. And the law enforcement was taking pictures of their tattoos and their insignia and their patches and putting it in a state database, a fusion center database. So this woman, Terry, reached out to me and is like, hey, we see you're doing all this great activism. And they have major political clout, this Texas Motorcycle Rights Association, because they all show up and like ride their motorcycles around the Capitol as a show of force, which is pretty damn cool. And so they're like, hey, we want to put forward a bill that would stop them from doing this. So I wrote an entire piece of legislation, and it was so strong, and it did away with like surveillance and biometric storing and all sorts of stuff. Now, of course, it got watered down completely, and the bill actually passed to ensure that all fusion centers in the state of Texas have a privacy policy in place that prohibits them from collecting or sharing information that's exclusively of a political, religious, or social nature. Tattoos, political posts, all in alignment with the First Amendment. That bill passed. It became law. But we left out, well, it was beyond our control because it went through and got watered down, but it left out any teeth with enforcement. So if a fusion center doesn't do A, B, or C, they'll have to respond and be held accountable to this and that or lose their funding or whatever. Long story short, I have been in the trenches getting city resolutions and ordinance blocked and passed, getting an actual piece of legislation at the state level passed, all sorts of stuff for like a good 7-8 years. And when you get into it, you find yourself messing around with nonsense like this. And what does this bill mean? And it's referring to the other section of the USC. And well, now we got to deal with the state regulatory agency that contrasts with the federal agency, but the bill actually covers which one's ahead of this and that. And it's all just a big, giant scam to divert your attention. And in the very end, just as we have a bill that's also being considered right now, HR 1919, which is, oh, this sounds really great. This will amend the Federal Reserve Act to prohibit Federal Reserve banks from offering certain products or services directly to an individual, to prohibit the use of CBDCs for monetary policy. Oh my God, their government's looking out for us. I'm so grateful for the Trump administration and his executive order. What would we do without the government to protect us from the government? It's all a deception. It's all a fugazi. You can rail against the government. You can cry till you're blue in the face. You can write letters and senators and text messages and phone calls and handshake visits, which are far more effective than sending an email or doing a phone call. You go up and show in person. But at the end of the day, my friends, the agenda that the predator class wants to put forward is going to plow forward one way or another. Just like the United Nations had the Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit in 1992, and they signed Agenda 21, a agreement amongst 192 nations signed by George H.W. Bush on behalf of the United States government, not a treaty enacted by the United States Senate in defiance of the United States Constitution. Rather, this agreement that all these member states would all the signatories, they'd all agree to enact these very aggressive regulatory and environmental policies aimed at limiting human consumption and the growth of settlements, putting forward sustainable development, which sounds peachy and clean, but in all reality, it was about control, surveillance, and creating a massive database awareness and control of every single element of biodiversity on the planet so it could be tracked. Fast forward now, 1992 to 2025, and we see the likes of Larry Fink trying to tokenize every single bit of biodiversity and life on the planet so they can create new tradable assets because they've exploited the debt-based system and it's almost about to go under and buckle. So what other assets can we exploit besides land, stock, commodities, futures? Well, let's exploit every single bit of life on the planet. But in order to do that and trade it and monetize it and turn it into a financial instrument, we got to tokenize it all and be aware of all of it in the first place. So our buddies can invest in this swamp and see if in the future the swamp's going to do this or that. And if it does, they pay out. If it doesn't, then they lose money, puts and shorts and options. It's a total nonsense fugazi game. And the point I'm trying to make, my friends, is even if the federal government or state governments are like, we're going to stop this, we're going to protect you, the predator class does an end run around national sovereignty. To quote Richard Gardner in this like late 70s Council on Foreign Relations document called The Hard Road to World Order. He said, in the end, an end run around national sovereignty, eroding it piece by piece, will accomplish much more than the old-fashioned frontal assault. So the point, again, to tie it all back to our CBDC thing, you can pass a bill to say the Federal Reserve can't put forward CBDCs. Trump can go stand up and give a speech or sign an executive order and beat his chest. And then everybody says, oh, see, John, you said to vote for nobody, but we voted for Trump and now he's banning CBDCs. at the end of the day, the predator class is so damn cunning, they're going to find a way. And when the United States government and other conservative factions started pushing back against Agenda 21, what did they do? They created the International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives and did an end run around the federal government, an end run around the state governments, and went directly to non-governmental organizations and cities. That's why there's ICLEI cities. When people said Agenda 21 plans, we know what that is. And there's this John Birch Society and anti-communists, and we see what's going on here. They said, well, we'll just not call it Agenda 21 anymore. How about we call it comprehensive planning? You see, the predator class is way more cunning than 99.999999999% of people that are awake. We're so awake. What do we do when we're awake? We share posts on social media and it makes a difference and we feel good about ourselves. Oh, the glory of being smarter than everyone else. Meanwhile, you're rolling into a freaking digital prison and you don't even know it. And the fact that you know there's an agenda, yet you're still engaging in this nonsense BS. I don't know who I'm even talking to now. I'm just venting. I just really want to encourage people to wake the F up, to take responsibility for turning the tide of history, and to recognize that we can't trust politicians. We can't trust anyone except for those that we know and trust, which is precisely why we need to lean into in-person communities, connecting with our local freedom communities and making a big difference. Now let's get back to the bill. All right, my friends. So we're looking up who is one of these regulatory organizations that is going to govern stable coins in the bill. And I got into this because that whole side quest was because these stupid bills and these stupid definitions and what does it even mean and blah, 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 right? So here's a couple things to be aware of. There's a permitted payment stablecoin issuer. Right now, anyone can create a stablecoin. There's no regulation. I could create a stablecoin. A decentralized autonomous organization could organize and create a freedom stablecoin. And I'll tell you about a freedom stablecoin, in fact, called the Freedom Dollar here shortly when we get into the solutions. But right now, when this bill passes, there'll be a permitted stablecoin issue. That's a subsidiary of an insured depository institution that has been approved to issue payment stablecoins under Section 5, a federal qualified payment stablecoin issuer, or a state qualified payment stablecoin issuer. This is now a permissioned system, not a decentralized, permissionless cryptocurrency system, which was the dream of crypto. But who's going to regulate this? Who's going to choose who can be a permitted payment stablecoin issuer? The primary federal payment stablecoin regulator will. God, what a mouthful of nonsense. The term primary payment stablecoin regulator means, with respect to a subsidiary of an insured depository institution, the appropriate federal banking agency of such insured depository institution. In other words, if a bank creates a stablecoin, it's the FDIC that's going to regulate that stablecoin. With respect to an insured credit union or subsidiary of a credit union creating their own stablecoin, you see what's happening here, folks? The legacy banking system and financial system is going to be the ones issuing these stablecoins. It's not something new or revolutionary. It's a badass technology that Satoshi Nakamoto created, now being consumed by the legacy financial institution. So if it's if it's a credit union issuing one, the National Credit Union Administration. And here's one right here. With respect to a state chartered depository institution not specified under subchapter A, the corporation, that's the FDIC, the comptroller, that's the Department of Treasury basically, and the board, the Federal Reserve Bank. They'll be the ones to regulate it. Now, the Federal Reserve Bank in this little definition here doesn't regulate every single aspect of all these other types of stable coins, a bank stable coin, a credit union stable coin. But we'll see here, there's actually language in the legislation that shows otherwise. Okay, so who is this primary federal payment stablecoins regulator? It's a conglomeration of the Federal Reserve Bank of Governments in some instances, the FDIC, the comptroller from the Department of Treasury. Okay, that's what it is. And they're the ones that get to choose who gets to issue a stablecoin. Now let's go back to the Bank Secrecy Act right here. Here we go. The primary federal payment stablecoin regulators, we just learned who those were, shall, or in the case of a state qualified payment stablecoin issuer, the state payment stablecoin regulator shall be consistent. So there's going to be regulations consistent with Section 13, issues relating to the implementation of yada, yada, yada. You got to implement this. You got to implement this. You got to implement this. You got to have, ready, here we go. So all stablecoins now got to have appropriate operational compliance and information technology risk management principle-based requirements and standards, including the Bank Secrecy Act and sanctions compliance standard. Okay, guys, so essentially what this means here, in general, a permitted payment stablecoin issuer shall be treated as a financial institution for the purpose of Bank Secrecy Act. And now here we have it. The entire stablecoin it's a legacy stablecoin institution because it's already around, but the stablecoin payment rails that already exist, in addition to the new ones that are going to be rolled out by Chase Manhattan Bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, you name it, they're all going to have to comply with the Bank Secrecy Act, meaning in order to use this system, in order to onboard into the stablecoin system, you're going to have to show your ID. It's going to be tied to your identity because most of the existing stablecoin cryptocurrencies now are completely surveillable in transparent blockchains, meaning I tied my ID when I brought this money into the digital, and now it's a digital token, a stable coin, and I sent it to this address and this address and this address and this address. Those addresses are all tied to identities. And now the government can track my financial transactions with greater efficiency using artificial intelligence, thanks to our good friend Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and the Department of Government Efficiency. We're having fun on the show today, guys. You guys having fun? The Department of Government Efficiency. They're going to roll back all the spending and get the U.S. out of debt. No, in all reality, they're going to upgrade the United States' technological systems, ensuring greater interoperability amongst the massive and vast databases that exist across this bloated, corrupt, crooked federal government. It's all a fugazi, my friends. And I hope people that supported Trump are waking up to it. I hope people that are fanboys of Elon Musk, like I once was, I stand like that's the ego thing, okay? I was a Elon fanboy, used to drive a Tesla, still have Starlink, and we like the Tesla Powerwalls. But I was fanboyed out. He's a maverick. And then I saw that he went and kissed the ring and did the apology tour with Benjamin Netanyahu. But either way, because my ego's in check for the most part, I'm able to say, yeah, guys, I got it wrong. I probably should have listened to all the people like Derek Bros folks that were twisting my arm and giving me a hard time. Derek Bros even like did an interview with me, and he had this like ambush journalism question where he's like, so what do you think about what Elon did here and here, given the fact that you've been a big advocate of his in the past? Derek, my buddy. Anyway, I was able to answer honestly. I still am inspired by everything that the dude's able to accomplish. He's crushing not only for his companies, but also for the predator class and the acceleration of technocracy. All right, so the Doge thing, it's all going to be interoperable, and everybody's identity is going to be tied to the transactions. And you can bet your bottom dollar, obviously, if a bank is issuing a stable coin, Wells Fargo coin or whatever, then it's most definitely going to be surveilled as well. Okay, so that's a key concern. The other key concern that I was going to share, there's 3 key concerns. There's probably more. We can have Aaron Day. In fact, if you guys want to dive deeper on this, I did a free webinar with Aaron Day. You can sign up at livefree.academy/sneakattack. livefree.academy/sneakattack if you want to dive deeper with Aaron Day. I'm pretty well versed on this. I'm just breaking it down for you guys off the cuff here. But Aaron Day is even more well versed and researched. And I want to invite you to sign up for this free webinar, livefree.academy/sneakattack. Where you guys can get the lowdown, even more in-depth of how this is all playing out as far as the CBDC sneak attack with stablecoins. But let's continue on. 3 things. Number 1, all stablecoins are going to be required to comply with the Bank Secrecy Act, which means your identity is going to get tied to it. Number 2, these stablecoins are only going to be legal and allowed to be issued if they're approved by the stablecoin regulatory body, which includes the FDIC, the United States government, the Department of Treasury, and the Federal Reserve Bank in some instances. Okay. And number 3, just the same, those stablecoins are going to, other stablecoins are not going to be permitted, and people that are issuing them could get in trouble. All right. Now, let me just show you this little catch-all here, because it appeared as though the Federal Reserve Board is only regulating non-state and non-bank and credit union stablecoin issuers, right? But there's a piece of legislation here. Let's see. Let me see what it says here. There's a piece that shows that the board has more authority to regulate the entire shebang. And let me just find it here. Essentially, the Federal Reserve Bank is going to have an extra layer. Just read it before. I'm having trouble finding it. An extra layer of regulatory oversight beyond just non-federal and non-state payment issuers, stablecoin payment issuers. All right, so the Federal Reserve is still in large part running the show. You can bet that they most definitely have control. They're part of a certification review committee. Okay, so check it out. Stablecoin Certification Review Committee. All right, so this is a committee that's going to approve stablecoins. Here's who it's comprised of: the Secretary of Treasurer, the chair of the board, the Federal Reserve Bank, chair of the corporation, the FDIC, right? It's all fugazied out. It's all smoke and mirrors. All right, so that's what's taking place. It's likely to pass today. Trump's a big fan of it. There's an anti-CBDC Federal Reserve Act that's being considered. Doesn't make a difference if it passes or not. The CBDC agenda is I'm not a betting man. I am a betting man, but I am a betting man. So I am betting that the CBDC agenda will be fully implemented within our lifetime, within the next probably 5 to 6 years, if not sooner. In the United States, extremely sooner. In the European Union, which some of you are tuning in from, they're planning to roll it out in October of this year. It's already rolled out in China. The new prime minister in Canada is was on the board of the Bank of England. He's a fan of CBDCs. He's written lengthy articles about CBDCs and concerns about stablecoins needing to be regulated because they're going to compete with our system. So the question then becomes, what are we going to do about it? What do we do? Well, first of all, you don't sit around and flail around and just research and share stuff and what we do is what I like to call keep the current flowing. So let me get into some of the stuff I teach in some of my paid courses, right? What they're aiming to do with the central bank digital currency and the acceleration of the financial control grid, which in many instances is already fully implemented in that most people, most of you watching this right now, you're all freedom people. You all care about privacy. You all care about financial sovereignty, most likely, unless you're new to us. You're getting a real earful if you're new to the freedom thing. Most of us, myself included, are using digital, surveillable, censorable payment mechanisms and platforms right now for a large majority of our transactions. If you use a credit card, a debit card, a checking account, an ACH transfer, a wire transfer, Venmo, PayPal, Square, Cash App, Samsung Pay, Facebook Pay, you name it, you're already de facto using and being controlled by and subjected to the most worrisome elements besides programmability of a central bank digital currency, and coming from someone who has a company that sells undesirable plant medicines like cannabis and kratom. I've had a Cash App account shut down. I've had a credit card terminal account shut down back in 2017 when I had a brick and mortar. I had a Square account shut down. I had a Stripe account shut down. And I even got debanked from my local bank, Frost Bank here in Texas. The branch manager called me up and said, John, we learned that you're selling CBD and that's just not in alignment with our policies. And I said, Donald Trump just passed the farm bill. CBD is completely legal now. It was already practically legal before. It's legal now. The state of Texas passed a bill before that regulating and legalizing CBD. You're telling me I can't sell a legal product? Well, unfortunately, it's a little bit too much risk, this, that, and the other. And I said, You know, this is why I've been a big firm advocate of Bitcoin for so long, because Bitcoin doesn't have a branch manager that can call and shut down your account. And she said, well, if we knew you were into Bitcoin and using Bitcoin on your account sooner, we would have shut you down a long time ago. Can you believe it, my friends? That's before CBDCs. It's been going on for me for the past 8 years. I've been shut out of credit card transactions and bank accounts. Me, not some, oh, it was some guy in Europe or what's his face? Dr. Mercola and his family got shut out by Chase. Kanye West, Melania Trump, the banking system's attacking all those people. Me too. A lot of people. Hashtag me too. So what are we going to do about it? Well, their effort, their mission, right? I'm a strategist. I really like strategery. You got to remember George Bush. Strategery. Their aim, their strategy is what I like to say. They're trying to stop the current currency. Learns from Grant Cardone. What is currency? Well, it's current, man. It's a current. It's a flow of energy. It's a transfer and flow of value. Here I'm over here producing courses, selling products, and I'm exchanging value for value that's frozen in the form of energy, in the form of money. Somebody goes out and works. They get paid for the value they produce for their employer or their customers and clients. And that value is exchanged to them in the form of money, dollars, ideally stuff like this, gold backs. And then they take that value and current, that energy, and flow it to someone else. So there's a flow going on. It's this vast, decentralized, free market, beautiful thing. Murray Rothbard defines the free market as the sum total of all voluntary exchange amongst human beings. The free market, it's a beautiful thing. But they're trying to stop the flow. We're going to put a wall in between who you want to pay and you to stop the flow, to stop the current, to control the currency, the current. So what's our strategy in response? To keep the current flowing. Woo, la, la, la. That's what I used to tell my staff when I'd be like, hey, here's the mission. Go do A, B, and C, and let's do this. And they'd be like, well, I tried to do A, but I wasn't able to reach them. And I was like, well, when life puts an obstacle in your way, what do? Do you walk up to it and be like, oh, there's an obstacle in my way, I'm going to leave? Or do you climb over it, walk around it, dig a tunnel underneath it? You keep the current flowing by any means possible. And if you fail to keep the current flowing, my friends, I tell you what, the real problem with central bank digital currencies isn't that it's a central bank digital currency, because as I just shared, we are almost completely already living under that type of financial system. The real concern is when the predator class, as they tend to do and as they have in the past, as they revealed most clearly through the COVID control mechanism, they aim to leverage the central bank digital currency system and the existing financial system and the IRS tax code, for example, in order to socially engineer the public to get them to do things that they wouldn't have normally done were they not coerced or had their arm twisted until they said uncle. That's the big concern. And what they're trying to do is close in the financial control grid, because right now there's a lot of free stuff out here. There's crypto out here. There's people doing these cash payments under the table out here. And here they come through regulation, financial control, big tech, artificial intelligence, surveillance systems. They're closing the free market and putting it into the financial control grid. And if you find yourself completely in the financial control grid, you are screwed. You're going to be in a world of trouble, because they're going to force you into their medical tyranny paradigm. They're going to force you to take their experimental gene therapy shot. They're going to force you to comply with a social credit score system that would have you recognize 5,000 genders and not say doublethink and wrong speak. They would have you say doublethink. If you say anything free thinking or go to a protest or watch John Bush's Live Free Now show stream, they're going to use the CBDC system to control you. And most definitely what this is all feeding into, the end game, back to Agenda 21, is to force people into an environmental carbon-based economy where instead of money, debt-based money, commodity-based money, free exchange. It's an energy credit system, which is the ultimate goal of the technocracy movement 100 plus years ago. So, my friends, if you don't want to be consumed by that system and having to make some really difficult decisions like, do I comply so I can continue to feed my family, or do I opt out? You got to go ahead and opt out now and prepare for what's to come so you're not faced with that difficult decision. Not only as a reactionary, defensive, responsive way to what's happening, but more importantly, because this is how we ought to live either way. And this is what we most definitely need to align with, because our thoughts create our reality. Where our attention goes, energy flows. That which you resist persists. The law of attraction in motion. It is real, my friends. And so the more you operate out of fear, the CBDCs are coming. The boogeyman's coming. The predator class has all the control. The more aligned you are going to be with that frequency, and the more likely you are to attract more of those predatorial programs into your life, even if they're not actually there. I tell you what, being a part of the conspiracy movement for 22, 23 years now, I know that a lot of people program themselves to believe that there's a conspiracy around every corner. And when they woke up in the morning and stubbed the toe on the corner of the bed, it was because Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates were out to get them, or whatever the hell the case is. It ain't all a conspiracy, my friends. It's a world full of beauty, wonder, harmony, spontaneous order, and freedom. And the more you align with that frequency, the more you'll experience it in your life. Okay. Hoi Polalo says crypto has been a Trojan horse from day one. I strongly disagree. And I don't think that there's any evidence to say that as a fact. It's possible. I'll give you that. But I would debate till I'm blue in the face on why I don't believe it is. But we'll save that for another show, unless you have some proof that you'd like to share with us or concrete evidence. That's what we seek here on the program. Okay, so what are we going to do about it? We got to keep the current flowing. Well, how do we do that? Through alternative currencies. We keep the current flowing through alternative currencies. What type of alternative currencies? Well, there's a few that I like to point out, a few that are easier to use and a few that are a little bit more complex, but thankfully you got some great teachers and folks on your side, like yours truly and other awesome freedom people. Let's go ahead and break down some of these solutions. I want to share with you. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some slides from my trusty CBDC opt-out challenge, which is coming up again in mid-August. I'm not going to share the link with you, but I do want to invite you. It's a 3-day challenge, super affordable to join. And I break down exactly how to keep the current flowing, anti-fragile agorist mindset, how to opt out of the beast system. It's a 3-day event. So many people got so much out of it. But let me just share with you guys. Here's how we keep the current flowing. We keep the current flowing with alternative currencies. Here's my top 3 alternative currencies. Barter, precious metals, and cryptocurrency. Pretty simple, guys. So what's the strategy? Keep the current flowing. How do we keep the current flowing? By using currencies that are beyond their control. John, you just told us about stablecoins and cryptocurrencies that are their control, that are controlled by them. Well, the catch is those stablecoins are centralized, surveillable, transparent. There's cryptocurrencies, and in fact, there's stablecoins I'll share with you here in just one moment that are actually private, decentralized, and uncensorable, permissionless, as we like to call them, in the cryptocurrency space. All right, so what's barter all about, my friends? Barter's simple as day. Doesn't take much to figure out barter. It is a exchange of 2 or more services. You can exchange goods. You can exchange services. Barter is when one good or service is exchanged for another good or service. There's not always a match between wants and needs. It's simple. It's off book. It's uncensorable. But you got to have a community and you got to know some people. Okay, so barter is where it's kind of like we should start with barter. Barter is a great tool, a great mechanism. I'm a big fan of barter. I'm also a big fan of precious metals. Precious metals are great. Precious metals are gold, what I was going to say. Precious metals have stood the test of time as a uncensorable currency that can't be controlled. It's a global store of value, recognized globally, gold and silver. You have to transport them. So that's a bit of a challenge. You can't buy and sell stuff online as easily. You could mail things, and you could mail things in an insurance package. That's not the end of the world. We've done that in the past, both to buy and sell. Gold is a classic store of value. It's great for wealth, for larger purchases. Silver is more transactional, but also a store of value, okay? And this is a perfect time. Just want to share, guys, a lot of what we do is made possible by folks that financially support our work, both Live Free Academy events and the Live Free Now show. And one of those sponsors, my friends, is Wolfpack. Wolfpack, Wise Wolf Gold and Silver. They have a program called the Wolfpack where you can sign up for a monthly subscription program. Well, they'll mail you tradable precious metals. I just so happened to get my first monthly subscription last month. I'm on the $125 package. It came with two generic silver eagles. It came with two junk silver $half. It came with two silver dimes. These $half and these silver dimes are 90% silver if they're 1964 or sooner. And it came with a gold back. Half a gold back. This is worth like $2.50 or so. Okay, that was last month. This one just came in the mail yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Again, you can go to livefree.academy/wolfpack, use coupon code LIVEFREE, and they'll send you some free junk silver on top of your order. Got my trusty pocket knife I bring with me always. So let's go ahead and open this baby up here. So it's always exciting to open it each month. And as you can see, it's discreet. All right, so livefree.academy/wolfpack. Let's pop this baby open and see what I got this month. Wow, a full gold back. I got a half gold back and a full gold back. These are extremely tradable, very easy to carry around and to use in commerce to keep the current flowing. I have two silver eagles. Now, last time they sent me generic silver eagles. See how it says copy? You can't really see it, but it says copy. These are actual silver eagles, which hold a bit more value being a silver eagle. Okay, my friends? What else did they send? Let me keep these separate so I can use this as a demo here. What else did they send me? Okay, and included is, wow, I've never seen one of these before. So again, the idea that's so valuable about these guys at Wise Wolf Gold and Silver, also the Wolf Pack is a little sub thing. Here's a $half. Kennedy $half, a quarter. This quarter is probably worth like $7, $6, I would say. And then look at this. Wow. Let me see if I can zoom a camera in here, guys. Look at this. I've never used one of these before. I'll just bring it up here. This is like this little silver unit. It actually can be broken. Oh, I just broke it in half. It's a tiny little tradable silver piece that I just broke in half, actually. And now I have two units. Oh my goodness. So look, I know a lot of people are like, John, cryptocurrency, crypto has been a Trojan horse from day one. Hoi Polley says the information is there. Just put the pieces together. Hoi Polley says crypto has been a Trojan horse from day one. I have a feeling that Hoi Polley uses the United States dollar or whatever fiat currency in their home country all the time, which we know is a Trojan horse. So let's fault crypto while simultaneously using the very surveillable system that we're most concerned with and for all of our transactions. Maybe not all of them. If you please tell me otherwise, and I will honor and salute you for folks that are using alternative currencies. But guys, the beauty of this Wise Wolf Gold and Silver and the Wolf Pack for folks that are skeptical of cryptocurrency, maybe older folks that aren't comfortable with technology, I don't want to mess it up, I'm even overwhelmed by my smartphone or a Zoom meeting, is you can go old school, my friends, and they'll send you tradable things. And you know what I'm going to do with these as a demonstration, but also to further the cause in my world? I'm going to go to the Bastrop Farmers Market. And just as I did 14, 15 years ago in Austin, Texas, I'm going to go from vendor to vendor with a pocket full of silver coins. And I'm going to say, hey, I'd like to buy some of your vegetables. I just so happen to have some junk silver or some silver eagles. Would you be willing to accept silver in exchange for your vegetables? And, you know, I have a feeling 90% of the people are going to say no. But that 10%, my friends, this is how we build the counter economy. You find the 10% that will accept silver. You give them your business, and then you tell your freedom friends about them. In fact, you can say as a sales pitch to get them to accept the silver, hey, I'm part of a freedom community around here. There's about 8 of us that get together regularly. We're trying to find local businesses and vendors that are willing to accept silver in exchange for their goods and services. To tell you the truth, we're a bit concerned with the way the dollar is losing value through inflation. And I don't know if you've heard of the CBDC thing where they're trying to like control and surveil all of our transactions. I don't know. It's just a little worrisome. So we're trying to find some local businesses we could support by using silver quarters, silver dimes, some silver eagles. Maybe you got some when you were younger. But there's like another 7 of me that will come and do business with you. Some of them will even come every Saturday. Is that something that you might be interested in? I'd love to buy some of your cucumbers and watermelons today. You see, that's how we grow. That's how we grow the counter economy. That's how we keep the current flowing. This is the way, my friends. And if you want a simple, recurring, set it and forget it solution to get precious metals into your hand, into your pocket, and into the hands of other local businesses and vendors or freedom people that you trade with in your community, Wise Wolf Gold and Silver's Wolf Pack program is most definitely the best way to go. They've supported Live Free Academy. They've supported other freedom events, and their owner, Tony, is one heck of a sharp mind who totally gets it. He's a veteran. He's a patriot. He's a freedom lover, and we're really grateful that they're sponsoring the show. So I hope that you guys will support them. If you like what we're sharing here on the show, they help make the show possible. But more importantly, they have a great service with a very, very small competitive fee. Each one of these has a very tiny fee on top of it, minuscule, and you'll be able to get a monthly subscription. It starts as low as like $25, $50. You don't have to go $125. You can go higher to $500. And it's great for wealth building. It's also really great for entering the counter economy and keeping the current flowing. All right, guys. So that is Wolfpack Gold and Silver. Okay, so precious metals. Precious metals, I believe, to be the number one way to go, or the best way for folks that are in person. Super optimal. But what if we want to trade outside their system online? Well, I'm a big fan of cryptocurrency. That's right. Cryptocurrency is digital, decentralized money in most cases. It's built on a blockchain, which is a decentralized distributed ledger. Okay. Some of the cryptocurrencies are transparent, meaning all the transactions can be seen, which address sent money to what other address, but others are private, completely obscure who sent what to whom. And they're extremely hard to control, certain cryptocurrencies. So which cryptos are great for opting out of CBDCs? Bitcoin. Although Bitcoin in large part has lost its revolutionary roots, but it's a great store of value still, and it is uncensorable. Bitcoin Cash is great as well as a means of sending small micropayments. But I tell you what, my favorites right now are Monero and Zano. Monero and Zano. So let me just share. We're going to wrap up here soon. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. If you're just tuning in, this is Live Free Now show, where every Wednesday I bring you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free, prosperous, and healthy life. I hope you'll subscribe to the podcast as well at livefreenow.show. That's livefreenow.show. And then again, we're going live on every Wednesday from 11 a.m. Live every Wednesday from 11 to around 12. All right, so here's what Monero is all about. And this is the number one cryptocurrency to use for keeping the current flowing and opting out of the out of the CBDC system. Monero has private transactions. Every transaction that you send, it cannot be known who sent what to whom, how much was sent. Extremely, extremely powerful for navigating around their beast system. It has a decent network effect, meaning there's a lot of folks that are buying and selling it and accepting it for their businesses. Not as big of a network effect as Bitcoin, but it's much more superior when it comes to the privacy. There's little to no fee to make a Monero transaction. Even if it's $5, the fee is absolutely nominal. And coming up soon is a technology called full chain membership proofs, which will make Monero even more private. I'm also a big fan of Zano. Zano is something that we've been promoting heavily within Live Free Academy. Zano is something we've been sharing with people. Also, every time I do a collaboration with the great Aaron Day, he's a big fan of Zano as well. In fact, that's how I heard about him. It has private transactions as well. It was built on Monero privacy tech. It's new. I believe there's strong upside potential with Zano. You can create private tokens on Zano. So that's the big innovation over Monero. I could create a live-free coin if I want. I'll share a really powerful token that's live on Zano now. That's going to be a great contrast to the CBDC stablecoin mechanism being set up right now. There's also a really cool tool called Confidential Layer. What Confidential Layer will enable is for you to take your Bitcoin, to bridge it, actual Bitcoin or Ethereum, to bridge it through Confidential Layer into a Zano Bitcoin token that is pegged to the value of Bitcoin. What does this mean? Let's say somebody has 50 grand worth of Bitcoin and they don't want to spend it using the legacy Bitcoin rails that are surveilled and they had their identity tied to it back in the day. They can bridge it through Confidential Layer into a private Zano token where the transactions aren't tracked or traced and spend that Bitcoin without anyone knowing what the hell's going on. That, my friends, is extremely, extremely powerful. Now, let me show you one more thing before we wrap up here to tie it all up in a little bow. You see, there's always an equal and opposite. With every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, okay? And despite our friend Hoi Polloi here, Freedom Dollar, I believe that Bitcoin was launched for the purpose of upsetting the Federal Reserve System, for the purpose of bringing government to its knees when it comes to the debt-based financing of wars and the wars of foreign aggression. That's why I got into Bitcoin in the beginning. But unfortunately, Bitcoin in large part has lost its way. It's now an asset that's being integrated into the legacy financial system. And unfortunately, that's a bummer. It's transparent. The privacy efforts have been kind of shot back. I'm not a big fan of the Lightning Network, which is largely custodial, using payment apps, not an actual decentralized, non-custodial wallet. But I want to share with you guys something super powerful that I'm a big fan of, that I believe is going to be a game changer, and that is called Freedom Dollar. So this is a token that's been built on top of the Zano blockchain. And essentially, just as Bitcoin was launched, to wrap that train of thought, that's just as Bitcoin was launched as a means to push back on the beast system, but then the empire struck back. The empire struck back and started pursuing central bank digital currencies as a response to Bitcoin. Now we have central bank digital currencies in the form of stable coins that are going to be implemented fully. But now the pushback on the freedom side is Freedom Dollar. Okay. So the website is, let me see the website here. The website is freedomdollar.com. Freedomdollar.com. It is a stable coin pegged to the value of $1 that is used on the Zano blockchain. So this is something that is brand new. I think there's like $2 million worth of transactions, or not exactly sure. Maybe it was $20 million. But this is financial liberty. And here's the beauty of it, guys. And here's like the really cool thing, because I just spent a lot of time talking about stable coins being regulated and controlled, and how only permitted payment stablecoin issuers are going to be able to create and issue stable coins. Well, what's this Freedom Dollar thing? It would appear that Freedom Dollar, I want to share this to give you hope that even if the government says A, B, or C, doesn't make it so. Okay? Freedom Dollar is a stable coin that's being issued in a decentralized way. And just as they say on their legal and philosophy page, Freedom Dollar is a decentralized stablecoin protocol that operates autonomously on the Zano blockchain using algorithmic market making to maintain its peg to the dollar. It's not issued or controlled by a company or central authority. The protocol is defined by its decentralized architecture, algorithmic stability model, and the personal responsibility it places on every user. All right, guys, so I want you guys to know that what's taking place here is a very rebellious act with the Freedom Dollar. Notice that the legislation we reviewed today does not ban stablecoins. It doesn't even ban non-permitted stablecoins. It bans the issuance of non-permitted stablecoins. Again, what am I saying here? Holding freedom dollars is not going to be illegal when this bill passes. Now, if a company said, we're going to form freedom dollar and issue it to the public, and we're not going to comply or get the Federal Reserve Board of Governors to approve it, or this stupid new approval committee, they would probably get in some trouble. But it remains to be seen what's going to take place with whoever developed this incredible platform. I know their name's not splashed all over it, but right now, just as Bitcoin was released into the wild, and once the cat's out of the bag, there's no putting it back, my friends. I can tell you that this freedom dollar has already issued millions of dollars worth of these private, decentralized, uncensorable stablecoins. And the more of us that use it, especially, the less likely it is for this thing to be stopped. And this will give us the ability to hold private crypto dollars and to transact them. We can hold private Monero as well, but Monero goes up and down in value, although it's going up. All right, continues to go up, but it's also has some dips and stuff. So if you're a business owner who's running tight margins, don't have a lot of cash flow, and you're like, we're going to hold half of our money in Monero to be outside the system. Maybe you're an agorist business outside the system, and that's a huge value for you. And then Monero's like worth 350, and then 2 days later it's worth 325, and then 300 a week later. And you're like, oh my God, we had half of our treasury in Monero, and now we have this huge payment we are going to make to buy more product and to invest in a new manufacturing piece of technology. That's problematic. That's why you could take some of that Monero, put it into one of these freedom dollars, and now you've stabilized your cryptocurrency holdings. All right, guys. So freedom dollar, really excited about it. Really excited about being a part of this community with you guys. It's my mission with Live Free Academy, with a lot of the work that I'm doing, to help our freedom community experience political autonomy. It's my mission to help our freedom community proliferate eco-sovereign communities built in the private realm, intentional communities, eco-villages in the private realm, outside the public, in the private realm, and to help create parallel economies, and not just parallel economies, parallel societies. That's my mission. I want to invite you to join me in this mission, not just by watching along, but by taking action. So what are some action items that you can take? Well, you can sign up and join our free webinar, where we'll invite you to join the Live Free Academy Accelerator program, where every month I'm doing 2 monthly master classes. We're doing an open office hours to answer your crypto questions. There's a bunch of courses and master classes you get instant access to. Sign up for that webinar if you want to learn more about it, and also hear from Aaron Day and myself going even deeper than we did today on this stablecoin and CBDC problem. livefree.academy/sneak attack if you want to learn more. livefree.academy/sneak attack to sign up for that free webinar. Beyond that, I want to really encourage you guys to take conscious actions and make conscious plans to keep the current flowing in your life. The last thing that you want is to be caught in their CBDC trap. It's not the end of the world that the CBDCs are here on the surface, because most of us are already using digital, surveillable, programmable money, less programmable, but surveillable, censorable money. Oh, yeah, it's a great system. It's a great monetary system. You got to love this system. Fantastic system that we're setting up. It's great how we duped everybody. Duped a lot of people, really duped a lot of people. I got to work on that Trump impression. Okay, so you got to learn to opt out of it, because they're going to bring you into the system and then socially engineer and force you to do things that you wouldn't have done normally. Had you taken my advice, had you taken the advice of other folks in this space, and learn to keep the current flowing. How do we keep the current flowing? With alternative currencies and building relationships with other freedom people, buying and selling goods and services outside of their financial control grid using alternative currencies, like bartering I got some chickens. I got these extra ducks. We birthed a lot of ducks. They're really difficult to manage. So how about I trade one of my ducks for some of your starter plants? You're really good at doing these starter plants. I see you got extra. You already planted all your garden beds. Sure, I'll trade a duck for some starter plants. Boom. No financial transaction, no record for the IRS, no way to stop that from happening. But you got to know people and you got to have value to provide for others. The other way, precious metals. Old school, no reason not to be doing this. Wise Wolf Gold and Silver with their Wolf Pack monthly subscription program makes it real simple. Head to their website. You can access it at livefree.academy/wolfpack, livefree.academy/wolfpack. You see what I got today? I got these 2 American Eagle silver ounces. These are worth like $45-50 each right now. These junk silver quarter, $half, and a gold back. And then these cool little tradable silver units, you could go and they're like, oh, it's $17.50. And you're like, well, I got this quarter here and some dimes, and you make the value. There's apps that show you what the value of all this stuff is. And I got different stuff last week. They're pardon my French. They're hooking me up, man. I'm going to have a nice arsenal. I got all these gold backs too. Mike Adams actually gave me these. I've been giving them out to people. I have an arsenal to go deploy to create the counter economy, to further the counter economy in my area. And that's exactly what I intend to do. livefree.academy/wolfpack. Use coupon code LIVEFREE in order to get some free junk silver with your first order. And finally, folks, if you're going to be doing business online, which a lot of us increasingly are, more and more, regardless, I highly encourage you to check out Monero and Zano. Monero, #1 privacy cryptocurrency as far as the value, but also the network effect, how many people accept it, how many people use it, how easy it is to trade in and out of. It's not the most easy thing, but we teach you how to do it in the membership, livefreemembership.com if you want to learn more. And then also Zano. Zano is groundbreaking private token technology with the really cool freedom dollar that's going to become more and more predominant in our freedom space. But you got to take action. You can't just watch a show. You can't just live in fear. You can't just hope that everything's going to be okay. You got to take action, my friends. And that's what we're bringing you here on the Live Free Now show. I want to thank you for tuning in, guys. Every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central, I'm bringing you the news, views, tips, and tools you can use to live a free and prosperous life. I hope you'll tune in next week. Until next time, my friends, stay free out there.